Yo, what's up, folks? Good evening. Okay, if you're just wondering why am I, acting like a devil, that's just me being fake or not being authentic, and that kind of is the topic for the day. You can call it as genuineness or authenticity. I'm gonna go a little deep into the subject, so stay the course. Let's get started. What exactly is authenticity or genuineness, or why am I going to talk about it today? So often, most of the topics that I pick are a result of my a conversation that I've had with someone, um, or it's something that I want to talk about that's not probably taught or much discussed about. So in this case, I was chatting with someone a couple of weeks ago, and this person brought about the values of being genuine or maybe too genuine, along with vulnerability and other aspects, which I was quite curious the way this played out. The conversation between me and the person played out. So I thought, why not speak about it? Because a lot of people want to understand what does it mean by being real or genuine, truthful, or being not fake, etc. A lot of them seem to be hurt by actions of the past. Someone in the past seem to have hurt them a lot. There's a lot of betrayal, backstabbings. These are words that these are things that people have faced quite often, and they're kind of meandering in a way or being unsure of what lies ahead for them, particularly if they think they are quite authentic, right? So that's the topic for today. We'll speak a little bit about what it means. Is there a link to childhood? How can they navigate the world where which is quite serpentine, and let's take it from there. All right, let's get moving. Authenticity or genuineness, what exactly is it, right? It's kind of I don't know if it's very hard to define, but um, you can probably think of uh, a good congruence between your values and what you say versus how you act, right? I mean, that's kind of a reasonably okay way of explaining what the authenticity probably is. The fact that people can sense that the mirror neurons can actually pick on humans are, by the way, trained in that. They can sense when people are being real or they're either manipulating or not matching the actions with the words. So that's pretty much what is authenticity. But it's easier said than done because it's very hard to be real in a world which craves for authenticity particular. So people want others to be authentic to them while they don't necessarily are real or authentic to the other persons, right? You see the distinction. So that's the dichotomy or what do you call what's right what hypocrisy that people have, because they like authentic people. It's considered quite attractive, quite sexy, because it's very difficult to find another genuine person, and that's the kind of person people want to deal with or do business with or even have some good relationship going. Yet people find it difficult to find such people in the first place, right? So when particularly they themselves are not authentic, they don't tend to believe that someone can be this authentic. It's quite scary. So we'll get to that part. And one of the things that I was very curious about is how is it that some people are very different, are quite authentic and genuine? Is there What are the factors that could be at play? Is childhood role to play? I did read some articles online here and there, but what I figured or some contributing factors could be a parenting impact where there's a very secure parenting or attachment, and the kid was encouraged to express their feelings openly and not punished for it, however divisive or annoying it the child expressed, right? So that is something that seems to have an impact. The other thing is when kids were encouraged to be authentic, in the sense you're encouraged to think for yourself and express, kind of relates to the previous point that I said. So when kind of an autonomy, right, given to you that yes, you're free to express what you have. So that kind of helps a bit. The third one, which is quite tricky but should be spoken about, is the trauma angle, where the child expressed a lot of betrayal and figures that being brutally honest could be the defense mechanism or the antidote to the betrayal that he or she has faced early in their life. So as I said, I've always spoken about adult behavior being very closely related to your the childhood trauma, the way you grew up, particularly the first 7 8 years. So again, this is another evidence pointing to the same thing, that your childhood really mattered. The other thing people generally confuse about is, I mean, I'm just randomly touching upon this topic. We'll go a little deeper. People tend to think that genuine people are naive. Not necessarily. It is possible that a genuine person is also naive, and people may think that somebody who's genuine is more likely to be naive, which is fine. It is possible, but in general, it is not necessary that a very genuine person who's generally truthful or mirrors his actions as words, sorry, mirrors his, yeah, mirrors the words into the actions, etc. But that person need not necessarily be naive. So that distinction you have to keep in mind, because genuineness also typically tends to come with a good understanding of people and behaviors, while naivety is quite the opposite, right? They assume the best uh, in everyone. They think that everybody else is like them in terms of understanding people and their intentions as well. Okay, what next? One of the things that typically come with genuineness and, let's say, authenticity in today's world, particularly in terms of either a relationship or even in the corporate world, is the fact that in many situations, particularly if you're not good at understanding people, the naivety part is bundled into you. You may be betrayed or backstabbed quite often by people, because people are looking for opportunities to take advantage of you. That's the reality. There's no reason to feel embittered by that fact. That is how the world is now. You may be having that utopian ideology that, why are people like that? No, there's no point thinking that way, particularly if you're on the genuine authentic side. And when you come across, let's say, narcissistic or psychopathic manipulative people who are not authentic or not, or are quite disingenuous, you tend to start doubting if your values are really worth it, and if you really fit into the world, particularly when you've been hurt quite often in the past. This is part and parcel of life. But so that's why I said, you will face this problem. You will be you will go down a bit, but that you have to learn to cope with it. There's no other way, and that's one of the learning, is to understand people and what their real intentions are, because people don't necessarily say what they mean. That is something that takes time, and particularly genuine people find it difficult to read these signals in other people. That's been at least my experience having interacted with people or in different situations. Now, what happens to these people, right? Like, how do they typically cope? Uh, are they kind of, do they feel very bitter? What happens to their confidence and self? Yes, it can be quite disconcerting for them. It can beat them down a lot. Your self confidence goes for a toss. Um, it's almost like, think of your foundation, something that you built yourself on for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, whatever the time is going to be, is suddenly shaken. The rug is pulled off your feet, and then you fall down on the head and then get injured. That's exactly what happens. You will feel pretty lost. And what then happens is, you tend to build the emotional wall around you to protect yourself, which is a very natural way to deal with the calamity or the betrayal that you just faced. What else do? You have to cope with it. So this could either mean you are extremely bitter, or you could use that experience to build resilience and understand the situation and read people better, etc. So there are two ways people can go. One of the things I've often seen with people that I've interacted with, they tend to become kind of very introvertish, in the sense that they're not sure who to trust, because they've been hurt so many times in the past that they're not very sure how to behave with people, um, how to what to say, what not to be, or they're sometimes wondering if their own self is a fitment into the world or not. Right? That's a very common question. These introvertish people and authentic people always have. It's actually a good thought to have. There's no easy answer for it, honestly. Even I don't know, but yeah, you can be quite cynical, and you will be distrusting of most people, and you're then wondering, what do I do? How do I channel this pain? Do I build stronger boundaries, or do I build better connections with people, right? That's the choice that people will typically make. Because once you are with the kind of withdrawal that you have of having, let's say, beaten down by people 2 3 times in the past, you're bound to kind of be extremely cynical of the world and question your own existence. It's kind of a existential crisis, right? Okay, do I really stay this way or should I change? And if I have to change, then the change looks much harder than you actually think, because you're built on some kind of a tenet and the values that you've built for yourself for so many decades, which is the core. It's kind of shaken at the core. So what do you do? That this is the kind of doubt most authentic and genuine people go through, right? And if you're that person, let me know. So one of the things then you can have is, okay, let's say whatever I'm talking so far is something that you could probably relate on. If you are that kind of a person, then what do you do? How do you get better is a question that people might generally have. And one of the things I think is relevant is to learn from your mistakes. Being authentic can also be a double-edged sword, because if you're speaking your mind, which most people don't, but if you're that authentic person who has to mirror your thoughts into action, so you basically say what you feel, it can land you in trouble in terms of any relationship or career, also at a workplace, right? So that is just part and parcel of the game. In some cases in the past, people have led their life for just maintaining their virtue or their authenticity. This happened in the past, but in today's world, maybe people won't lose their life, but yes, you might have a relationship that is lost, or a job that can go not in your favor, for example, or promotion that's not going to happen, which you think you're eligible for, but it goes to somebody else who's probably inauthentic as per your understanding. One of the things, yeah, you can probably hold back a little bit, but you shouldn't be compromising on your integrity. So one of the things I've generally felt when life throws these kind of conundrums at you is to ask yourself what you are personally comfortable with. So what exactly happens when you're authentic, right? So it's what is it? It's an alignment of your inner world with the outer world, right? When I say inner world is your values, your thoughts, your feelings, with the actions and words and the choices that you take, it means you're saying what you mean, and you're doing what you said or what you're going to say, and you're thinking for yourself. The originality in thought, irrespective of what others want to hear, you speak what you think is right, and being honest with yourself, even if you're wrong, and you're being very self-reflective or aware of how your behavior has been. So this kind of level of self-awareness is not found very often in this world. It's pretty hard to find such people and such behaviors, which is why you would have had this experience, right? Most of us would have had, hey, this guy looks very genuine, or this girl is, quite authentic. I would like to be friends with her, or I would like to marry her, or I would like to work for him, for example. People form such opinions because evolutionally our brain is kind of wired to kind of identify such people to a large extent, that mirror neurons and other aspect that rest about, you can Google about it. But in general, people are pretty hard but also identifying the fakish nature of people, or people who are not congruent in terms of their actions, right? In terms of their behavior. Now, there are some core components around authenticity. I mean, just for the sake of completeness, now that we are going a little deeper into the topic, right? What is it? One is the high level of self awareness. You're basically, what you are, what you believe, and what you stand for. That's number one. Secondly, you have the kind of I wouldn't call it temerity, but kind of a courage, which is inbuilt to speak the truth, even knowing that it could be risky or potentially risky, right? Because you need balls to do that. It's kind of hard knowing that you said something. Let's say it could be it's a spouse, a relationship, or to a boss at work, where you say something that for a fact that your boss wouldn't want to hear, but you still say it, right? So these are the courage that it takes. Now, the choice is difficult, right? Okay, do I say this and have the risk of getting wrapped on the knuckles, or maybe even getting fired, or is it that I feel good about myself, that I've stayed authentic to myself? That's a choice conflict that people can potentially go through. The third aspect, apart from self-awareness and courage of speaking your mind, is consistency and congruence. Now, You may think both are quite related, but there's a slight difference. The congruence is pretty much easy to explain, that your actions, your words, and your thoughts are pretty much in alignment with what you were thinking, and it's not conflicting. And how often and how consistently you perform this congruence, or retain your authenticity, is the consistency part. Because so you have to be congruent in terms of your actions, and also be consistent in performing this step, right? So that is the number three. And integrity, you live by your values even when people are not really watching you. So these are uh, the core, let's say, components of a authentic person, or authenticity in a person, that you might find. Now, you may think, okay, how do I instinctively sense it from people? I mean, which we touched upon. Okay, your brain has evolved to look for congruence, and this is something that women are extremely sharp at picking up. Uh, so a lot of times men are wondering, why is this woman suddenly not having a relationship with him, or she walked away because she sensed that you're not congruent. Your actions weren't really matching the words that you had, and your emotions were not aligned, right? So people can kind of sense it. Women are generally sharper at sensing these actions. And whenever there is a mismatch, let's say a forced smile, artificial smile, uninterested eyes in terms of conversations, for example, your mirror neurons kind of pick up on these inconsistencies, and it kind of makes you feel uneasy. Have you, let's take a pause, right? Have you had this experience with people? I'm sure you have. I mean, let's say it could be in your workplace where people just pass by and they actually don't like you, but they tend to be like this, fake smile, right? So you would have seen that quite often. Uh, or a very uninterested friend who's, you're actually passionately talking about something, and the person on the other side is like, you could kind of sense it. So that's what we call. Now, even in the past, right? If you go back in history, the Greek philosophers spoke about it, particularly, Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates, and a bunch of these guys. They kind of mentioned that, knowing yourself, that they called it thyself in those days, but knowing yourself, or self-examination, they figured that to be a great virtue. And in fact, I think it was Socrates who said, an unexamined life is not worth living. Uh, Plato went a little deeper, and he basically said, don't get fooled by appearances. Or he believed that a lot of people live a fakish life, so which means the authentic people are extremely far and few. You're not going to find that genuine people quite often. It's going to be, it's a rare gem to find. um, so a lot of people live in pretense, right? They live in a kind of a illusion. And it's very hard to find that, the seek the real, accepted versions of people, because a lot of people want to also associate themselves socially, right? And if more people are in that fakish, pretense, illusionary world that they've built for themselves, you're more likely to be that. You're pretty much an extension of how the society has seen you so far. Now, the authentic people tend to kind of break free from this societal mold, or the illusion that people have built for themselves, and they are willing to show yourself the truth, or show yourself a mirror of what you should have been, or you could have been, but you haven't, right? Now, the question is, what really happens, right? Why do authentic people tend to suffer a bit, right? They're not having an easy life in general, if you come across. And that's been my experience when I've spoken to such people who I think are extremely genuine and authentic, who are quite vulnerable. I found them uh, a little cynical of the world. They're a little tired, they're very unsure, they feel a little lost. Sometimes they're also not sure whom to trust anymore, right? This happens. Now, you have to understand that people don't necessarily hate you, or hate authenticity in general. It's, I kind of surmise this as a fear, more of a fear, uh, and uncomfortable thought that they are not that person, and they have to face the reality, right? I mean, imagine if, and this is exactly what, Jordan Peterson says in, about authenticity and speaking your mind. And a lot of people who've seen my videos know that I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson. I try to follow most of what he preaches or advises in general. So I've taken some excerpts from him so that it can reach more people. I don't claim that some of these things are my own original content, right? Uh, so he basically says people tend to be a little fearful of seeing that authenticity as a trait, because they themselves are not that person. So one analogy he basically gives is, imagine a lazy person. How would he feel looking at a very disciplined person, or how a dishonest person would feel when he looks at a very honest person, or let's say a person with no skill, how would he feel when he looks at a person in his company, in his colleague who's extremely skilled? You would obviously not like him, even if you internally, secretly wish that you could be that person. But let's say you know that you can't be that person, then what kind of feelings would you generate for that person, right? It's kind of, you can understand. Now, what do you expect, right? In these situations, you'll get ostracized. You'll not be part of a gang. You tend to get ignored sometimes. Ostracized is, of course, not like a social outcast, but yes, you're not part of a gang, or you're not part of the game, right? What this then does is, we being very social humans, animals, we start casting doubts over our own belief system, which was kind of alluding to earlier as the foundation of your existence, or the foundations or virtues on which you built certain tenets for yourself, right? And then you start thinking, oh, am I bad? Am I actually wrong? You start questioning each of the actions you've taken in the past. Uh, Kind of a deep self reflection. I wouldn't say it's unwarranted, but to a level which is probably more deeper than a normal human would tend to face. It leads to a lot of self effacement. Your confidence goes for a toss, and it may lead to a little bit of low self esteem, right? Now, that's probably the path that you shouldn't go, but this happens to a lot of people because you refuse to play the game that the world expected you to play. And that is painful for the inauthentic people to observe and watch, because they're not going to like it. What you've done is quite painful, by the way, right? Because by not playing to the patterns of what is expected of you, you've actually taken in some kind of a pain, even if willingly knowing that the action of yours is probably not going to result in your favor. You've taken that call, which is kind of painful. It's not an easy decision to take for most people, right? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't? So these people are kind of wired very differently. Um, you're in general, I figured that even authentic people find most people find it very intimidating to face the truth, and so do they avoid. It's easy to avoid, right? If you don't have to face the truth, it's easy to avoid. What else would you do? And the same thing with self-reflection. It's let's say I'm lacking in discipline, or I'm lacking in something that I need to work on. Most people know that they lack on something, but they don't want to accept, because they want to live in that delusional world of not accepting the truth about themselves. So that if you don't have that attitude of self-awareness and self-reflection, that's going to be pretty hard, right? In general, looking at yourself in the mirror is pretty hard for most people, and answering yourself, first of all, is pretty hard. And why authentic people find this part easier is because they're able to answer themselves easily, because they have not lied, they have not probably denigrated anybody, they have not said something and did something opposite, they have not backstabbed anyone intentionally, right? So they're able to live a life of, let's say, what you call truth, or they've kind of a faith. That's what they are believing in, like, okay, I'm going to be doing this irrespective of what the world expects of me, and I'm going to hope or have that faith and that belief that something nice is still going to happen to me sometime down the line, which is a very harder path to take. It's kind of an insurmountable path, but that is exactly what even Jordan Peterson says, that living like that is much easier than the path of lies that people tell themselves all the time. How do you? So the question is, like, are you kind of comfortable doing this path, taking this path of staying authentic and saying the truth? It's much easy. I don't really have to think about speaking to someone when someone asks me anything, because I'm not doubting the intentions behind which he's asking. I mean, most people know and they kind of avoid. Some people don't. Right? The authentic people are probably not that worried about what someone else is going to think, which is they're able to face the truth, or they believe that is exactly the foundation in which they are built. Now, the easy path for other people is to just avoid, delude oneself into thinking there's nothing is wrong with them, but that's exactly the kind of let's say the ulcer or a cancer that is within you. If you choose to take that path, that's up to you. No judgment on anyone. but that will eat you from inside. Those are exactly the people who will probably find it difficult to sleep, difficult to live, because you're the entire foundation that people have built on them is a bunch of lies and deceit on which you kind of choose to go. Now, if you speak and live by the truth that you have set for yourself, it is going to be hard, but you will attract people of both varieties. You will attract people who actually see and value the real you. You will also attract the people who want to take advantage of this person that is you, right? So you have to be quite careful, which is why you have to build a set of skills around people and spot the red flags and the early manipulators in very early interactions. Now, being authentic is it's also a huge struggle because you're constantly put through some kind of a test. If the path that you've chosen is right, you're constantly testing yourself, right? That's hard, but eventually, I believe strongly that there's more people like you. Maybe the percentage is less, but someone like you is more likely to find you, and that's exactly where you will find peace. And then you will have your foundation comes back to you. You start realizing that the values that you built for yourself are not, after all, wrong. It had some grounding, right? It's almost like you face reality, and when you see such person, that's exactly. I think Carl Jung spoke about it. I think he called it synchronicity when two such minds met each other. He says it's kind of destiny. If a person, when you're in interaction, says that it's destiny that brought us together, or I'm really happy that I found a person like you. It's those are not just mere sentences, guys. I mean, it has deeper meaning than what you can think, because that person is saying that, hey, I kind of see me in you, and I kind of sense that you're seeing you in me in terms of values, right? Uh, uh, and I'm so happy that there is another person like you. That's exactly what they're trying to say. They're just happy. Their presence is kind of authorized. They feel validated in some form, right? That's the right word, actually, not authorized. No, so that's the uh, this pretty much is the crux of today's conversation. I know it's been a little heavy. I've kind of touched upon a little bit of history, the Greek philosophy on what you can expect being authentic, what is authenticity, and how do you sense it in people, how do you look for actions and words which are matching in each other. So this is the crux of what I also spoke about, what Jordan Peterson says about why being authentic is a virtue, and why you need to speak your mind. So again, no judgment on anyone. These are aspects that I also truly believe in, and that's something that I tend to live by uh, more often. I'm not going to claim that I'm some kind of a saint who's never lied in life, but I'm just it's just a thought. I'll open it up to you for people who are belonging in that boat of genuineness, not the questioning their existence. I thought this would be a great uh, introduction, or a slightly deeper dive into to telling them that the path that you've chosen is hard, but it's okay. Right? There are many like you. All right, I'll see you next week soon with some other interesting topic. Cheers, bye.